Sri Lanka, equally so, are desperately trying to stay in this test match. A man who I have no doubt has had a drink and enjoying some sunshine, Philasande Sixaba, joining us live today from the Bidvest Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg. This is some of the live action. Pila, thank you. Shaking your head. No cold drink, no sunshine today. Pila, it's Test cricket day. Why not?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mark. It's been quite an absorbing day in terms of the cricketer's point of view, but there's been a lot of sunshine, which is always a good thing in terms of trying to get some action out on the field. It's been action-packed in terms of some of the seesaw events that have happened today on day 2 of the second test match against Sri Lanka here at the Wanderers. That first morning and that first hour of today was really dominated by South Africa, and then the second hour, just before the lunch interval, Sri Lanka really clawed their way back, claiming 4 South African wickets in their quest to really try and stay in this game. And then they wrapped up that South African innings after that lunch break for 302 runs for an effective lead of 145, which they've been trying to chip away, but it hasn't been easy. The bowling from South Africa has been quite good, but it's also been a battle because the pair of Lahiru Tirimane and of course the captain Dimut Karunaratne had put on 85 for that second wicket before Lungingidi and of course Andrak Nokia struck for the Proteas to whittle that Sri Lankan batting lineup down to 4 wickets. And they're really still trying to fight out there. The pair of Niroshan Dikwela and of course Dimut Karunaratne also still out there trying to get to his a century, and it would be a century that has been well deserved. They've really shown some good endeavour, Sri Lanka, on this test tour of South Africa. It's been difficult for them, a number of injuries, but they've really shown up and shown good character. Vishwa Fernando also pick of the bowlers for Sri Lanka, getting his first career fifer. So lots of action still to come in this last hour of day 2.
Pila, we spoke at the close of the Supersport Park test that Sri Lanka had to be far better ahead of this Wanderers test, and I wonder how hard done by they'll feel at the moment, because they have actually been very good at stages of this test match. Yet the scorecard will not tell you that. In fact, it will tell you that they are desperately trying to bat themselves into a decent position, that they are desperately trying to take this test beyond 3 to 4 days. Yet, as you mentioned, they did very well to get South Africa out and actually have a mini collapse with the bat, did South Africa. Yet somehow the scorecard does not show how good Sri Lanka have been in, albeit very minuscule, stages throughout this test match.
I think you've got it spot on, Mark. They've been good in patches in this test match. I mean, to be bundled out for 157 on day 1, halfway through day 1, doesn't really paint the picture of how better this performance has been in terms of showing a bit of character and endeavour from the Sri Lankan team. But they're still out there fighting, and they've still got a lot to play for in this test match. Of course, they're in the context of the bigger scheme of the picture. They're still fighting for ICC Test Championship points in this test match. So they're going to claw and really fight their way back. So it's really synonymous of any team that's been coached by Mickey Arthur. You remember how South Africa rose from a very obscure team to one of the best sides in Test cricket under his tutelage, and of course he went on to Pakistan and do some really good things for Pakistan also. So very much following in the similar pattern is this Sri Lankan side, trying to fight and scrap for every sort of advantage they can try and get in this Test match. It hasn't been easy. The bowling pair of Lungingidi and Andrik Nokia have really bowled well and put them under pressure. There's still some batting to come though for Sri Lanka. They've still got Niroshan Dikwela, who I mentioned, the wicketkeeper batsman, still out in the middle, and of course the Dasum Chanaka, the seaming all-rounder, and of course Wanindu Hasaranga, the leg-spinning all-rounder, still to come to try and whittle down the deficit, the little deficit there is, and try and get set South Africa a total that they can really try and bowl at and defend and try and win this test match. It doesn't look like a test match that's going to go all the way for the 5 days. We might be out of this Wanderers Stadium by the end of tomorrow.
You'll be very lucky if it goes to the end of tomorrow, I think, alone, Pila. Forget 5 days. The end of tomorrow would probably be an achievement for Sri Lanka as it stands. Pila, what would you say is the better performance with South Africa, the bat or the ball? Because, again, much like we saw at Supersport Park, there's been some outstanding batting performances in this test match. Dean Elgar, of course, stands out. But as you mentioned, there's been some outstanding bowling performances as well. I imagine that the technical lineup of the Proteas will be delighted to see both facets of the game performing so incredibly well.
I think in this test match, the bowling has really stood up well, Mark. It's also a team that's in transition. So you'll have inconsistencies in terms of all the disciplines that they're trying to get right. I think today they would have wanted to replicate that Centurion batting performance, bat long, bat big, and bat once. But it hasn't been the case, and you're going to get that in a team that's still trying to pave a way in Test cricket and try and establish themselves and their identity again as a South African Test side. So I think that today they would have been extremely and bitterly disappointed that they weren't able to exert some pressure on Sri Lanka like they did at Supersport Park with the bat. But I think the bowling has really stood up and improved from the bowling performances we saw in the last test match at Supersport Park in Centurion. I think Luta Supamla also continues to really do well and find really good test match lengths in only his second test match. Lungi Ngidi has come back very nicely and also claimed 3 wickets today, and also Andrich Nokia with that extra bit of pace. We saw how he got Minod Banuka out, a ball that really rushed him, and he tried to pull a ball that he was in no position to pull. So I think it's a good balance in terms of how South Africa has performed in both disciplines with the bat and the ball, but they're going to be eager to try and find some sort of consistency between those two disciplines in order for them to be a really formidable test side and really trouble some of the best test sides in the world.
And Pila, before I let you go, very quickly, before we wrap up the hour, I was being perhaps unfairly harsh to Sri Lanka, poking fun, saying I'd be lucky to bat out until tomorrow, or not bat out, to last until tomorrow. But is there an opportunity for them to knuckle down, to bat until the stumps close of play today, come out fresh tomorrow, add some more runs, and actually give something for South Africa to properly chase?
I think that will be the message from Mickey Arthur and the dressing room and the coaching staff of Sri Lanka, to really show some grit in this last hour of play tonight and come back tomorrow refreshed, and then they can set their stalls again for another long dig at this South African bowling attack. It will be a South African bowling attack that will tire out as they struggle to get the Sri Lankan tail out. But I think that will be definitely the message from Mickey Arthur, to knuckle down and lose as few wickets as possible tonight, and then they can come back tomorrow and try and whittle down and set South Africa some sort of total to chase. It might not be significant, but the message will definitely be to really knuckle down and try and get South Africa back out and onto the pitch with their pads on again and try and chase some sort of total tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. Well, South Africans all wanted to go the SA way, but of course, from a competition point of view, we would love to see Sri Lanka bat long and put up a really good total. Pila, thank you for your time. Get back to the cricket. We'll catch up with you in the next hour as well. That is some reaction from the Bidvest Wanderers Stadium today. That second test match currently on the way. We've been showing you some updates there. South Africa in firm control of the test and of the series as well. Sri Lanka currently 4 wickets down. They are trying to get into a lead, and as Pila mentioned, try to put up any form of total that may well trouble South Africa. As it stands now, Sri Lanka are really scraping the barrel to try and put up as decent a total as they can. A lot more to come here on News Feed. Stay with us here on 405.